Sun's
Cornhole.
and just in time as we have a battle for first place in Game 2 and an LCS Classic in Game 3. The day opens up, though, with two teams off to a slow start. 100 Thieves and Clutch Gaming. We'll see who can begin Week 3 with a bang in not too long. Now, hello, everyone, and welcome to the LCS Countdown, where for 30 minutes we check in on the LCS stock market and preview the newest champ until the timer reaches 0 and we jump into Champions Select. Unfortunately, Hai was not able to join us this week, but I believe that Mark, Kobe, and I can make do. Do you believe?
Yeah, I don't know about the stock part, but we'll make do in other places.
I was going to say, it doesn't inspire confidence there.
The stock market, I mean, there's a learning curve here. You know, you got to spend money to make money, James.
Brand
We're getting started.
Exactly. Yeah. Warm into it, my friends. We got plenty of runway left to go. Let's get a quick refresher on how the teams stack up coming into Week 3. Team Liquid stand tall at 4-0. We'll see if they can maintain their position versus second-place FlyQuest in Game 2, while the teams in third place try to break away from that massive six-way tie. Time now, though, to recognize a player that conceded the need to carry last week, just to say I'm helping, brought to you by State Farm. Last week in his match versus Clutch Gaming, Core JJ reminds us not all 1v3s are created equal.
When you've got a damage-heavy composition like this, ooh, it's scary. Top lane tier 2. Being targeted now as well by the side of Team Liquid. Core JJ getting himself in a fight 1 versus 3. 2 redemptions called down as Piglet's going to be in some trouble. Vulcan also taken very low. The Clutch Gaming AD carry's already been popped. Demonte will grab a return kill onto Xmithy as Lyra will go down. The double kill over to Impact before he falls.
I just love that it is Braum as Core JJ in the 1v3. Just starts punching Piglet in the face. He's like, where's my team? HP. Yeah, for like a couple of seconds there, he's just by himself.
Exactly, playing like he's got an entire army behind him. There's a lot of mystery and intrigue still around Core JJ as a player and what kind of separates him as a support above a lot of the others that we've seen. And we'll get into that throughout the day, I'm sure, as we see more evidence of top-tier play from him. If we take a look, though, at the matchups for the day, we see that battle for first in Game 2, and then a clash between what many consider to be two of the strongest teams in the league as TSM faces Cloud9. And another game between teams in that third-place clump, CLG versus Echo Fox. I'm sure there will be some separation created today just by virtue of having that six-way tie. Following their first victory, though, Aphromoo had this to say on the most recent episode of The Heist about his overall attitude in 2019.
Yeah, for this team, I do have high expectations of myself in particular, and we also have high goals. Just for me, I'm really just focused on making sure we can all get on the same page, improve as fast as we can. Don't want to rush it, you know, just go overboard or anything like that. Whenever we lose in a game that, you know, we could have won, to me, that's unacceptable from me in particular, because I could have played, you know, maybe 1% better, said this at that moment, made us focus on this instead. So usually when we lose, I'll probably take it the hardest. I think I'm focused a lot more on individual critique for the games, just because I want us to do really well, and especially Bang coming over, I want to be able to allow him to shine too. It's important that I improve my play, be the type of player that the team needs.
I mean, there was a lot of talk about his interview after the game that they won versus Golden Guardians, where you could tell that the atmosphere was pretty down in 100 Thieves camp, and it's not a surprise to me. Watching that, like, I know a lot of people were super shocked, but their management, their players, their fans all have very high expectations for them. And I'm also a super competitive person. So, you know, after losing the first 3 games and then barely winning the Golden Guardian ones, I can understand what happened, at least.
I'm like kind of torn between the two, because I think it's a very natural response that he had to the situation that the team is in. But at the same time, he is still supposed to be seen as kind of like the figurehead of the team in a lot of ways, where like he is one of the most public-facing players on the team, and he did not like go out and be like, yeah, guys, we're struggling right now, but I think we can turn it around. Like, he didn't give the fans a lot of confidence either, so it was kind of down the middle for me about, like, I see where he's coming from, but I still would hope that he would be a little bit more upbeat.
Yeah, he definitely understands both sides of the coin from the fans' perspective and the team's perspective, but it's nice to kind of have that acknowledgement from the team themselves of like, hey, we recognize that this is a concern many are having. Let's go ahead and reassure you that Aphromoo still is one of the most motivated players and has been for a large majority of his career. We'll see if they continue to improve throughout these weeks. They did pick up that all-important win just last week. Looking at both 100 Thieves and Clutch, these teams were built around their side lanes, and they haven't necessarily impressed or delivered so far.
Yeah, I mean, we can even start with the top lane here. Someday versus Huni in this matchup. I mean, last year, when franchising first started, this was the premier top lane matchup where he imported both of these extremely good individual, very strong laning phase players, before the rise of Licorice and all of the change of the top lane dynamics. Even though both those guys have stumbled recently, I am still extremely hyped for that top lane matchup. I think it's going to be a pivotal point for this game.
Definitely the case because, they haven't been great so far, but if either of these teams have championship aspirations, they need to start stepping up. And this is a great time to do it, like you said, because it was the old premier matchup. The other thing, of course, is the bot lane after seeing the Afro move saw it, and also for the same side on Clutch. Like, that's another big point for both these teams that they built around. And Bang has looked good so far, but they haven't quite taken over games like you would hope a former world champion would.
Right, and of course, another win for either of these teams would really help in either establishing or building that momentum that we talk about. Hey, one win in what is expected isn't necessarily going to be the catalyst for, like, we got it, guys, we're going to playoffs.
Yeah.
But if you can mount 2 in a row and the second one coming over a more competitive team, that's where you could really start to see some momentum and hype building around a roster, and maybe that renews them with some kind of energy. DeMonte had this to say, though, about how he's adapting to Clutch Gaming this split.
I think the players on our team all are pretty resource-heavy players. We have Huni, obviously, he really wants to carry. Same for Piglet, and you can say the same for me as well. So right now we're finding a good balance between all that. Lyra is struggling a bit right now, kind of getting pulled all over the map, and that's something we've been working on since the beginning of scrims, and something we have to keep working on.
Yeah, they're getting pulled all over the map. Meanwhile, Mr. Consistent in the mid lane, DeMonte, has actually been their best player.
Yeah, an absolute surprise as we talk about the expectation for the side lanes for these teams. Meanwhile, it's the Rock in the mid lane for Clutch that's really been pulling them through.
Yeah, when everyone talked about this roster, it was all about Lyra, who looked great a couple splits ago. You have Huni, who's perennially been one of the best top laners, and then Piglet, who used to be dominant as well. And then there's DeMonte in the mid lane holding it down and actually being the biggest part of both their wins so far, I would say. So he has been an absolute stud, and it's just about kind of what he was saying there, figuring out how Lyra can help the other two to kind of get up to that level so they become more consistent.
Yeah, one of the biggest games for them this split, to me, was the game where Huni died like 3 times in a row top lane with Victor, but DeMonte Zakali farms up. He doesn't do anything crazy, picks his moment in the mid game, and then is able to carry it back for them.
Yeah, the Akali and the Galio flank, I remember around that Baron pit, a couple huge plays coming out of DeMonte. Yes, the underperforming aspect of Huni is something that we definitely want to call into question at least, but this is something that's been consistent for him kind of throughout his career. At times, he can look like the biggest liability, but in some ways, it's what you're paying for when it comes to picking up a superstar like Huni. Is there will be as many game-winning moments as there are game-losing moments at times. And right now, it just seems like the game-losing moments are out-indexing over the game winners.
And it's especially hard as a fan to, like, when you're hyped up about this team, that you start out with the negative end of the spectrum.
Right.
But like, I don't think that means that he's going to stay like that. So I'm not super concerned for Huni.
Also, it was pretty interesting. He did a couple interviews, and I talked to him as well about this year and what he wants to be different. And he said he wanted to focus more on the team and not just be the Huni, crazy push lane solo carry. So we'll see how he develops.
Right, you got to consider the learning curve there in terms of changing play style around the team. We'll see who can take game 1 in just about 20 minutes. Until then, we're going to take a break. When we return, we break down the newest champ to enter the scene, Silas. Welcome back to the LCS Countdown. Let's talk Silas, the newest champion to join the League of Legends roster. He's a very exciting champ, but one that hasn't quite found his footing in pro play. For example, over in the LEC, he's been picked 3 times, banned 6 times out of 10 games. That's 90% presence, but he has 0 wins in those 3 plays. It's clear that pros are recognizing his potential as a champion, but haven't yet figured out how to best utilize him with rune choices that are ranging anywhere from Comet to Grasp to Aftershock. We haven't seen the Fleet footwork yet, but it's in there. Kleptomancy still viable, and item builds, anything from pure tank to full damage. So the possibilities seem endless with this champion, but the question remains, how, where, why should this champion be played?
To me, the biggest strength that I think should be utilized with this champion is as a counter pick. It is such a versatile champion, but whenever you add this many more variables, simply by having this champion be able to steal the enemy ultimates, seeing the previous picks that your opponents are going to have to go into changes it so much, as well as what is your lane going to look like, because he can be a lane bully. You can go for an aggressive jungler pairing. You can go for, lane kills in a similar like Fizz or Echo top lane kind of split push and build the half tank, half AP. But there are so many more options as far as the possible counters that come out with them. And that's why, especially in pro play, when they have even more limited samples, because they start practicing new champions a little bit later, you see all these item builds and all these different runes and combinations coming up.
I think what you're talking about with the ults is really interesting, where he doesn't just combo into like, oh, what does the enemy do to me, but what can I steal from the enemy to use for myself? And it creates like a lot of really weird things. Like, as just an example in the meta right now, like Ezreal's one that's really easy to steal from. Here you can see him stealing Akali for extra mobility. It's insane. Camille, obviously extra ult for being able to lock people down in engages. Another relatively popular champion in the meta. There's just a ton of them. And like the one that I found was interesting was Ezreal, because he has an AD ratio that gets converted to AP, so you end up with a 1.4 AP ratio on his ultimate, which is nuts if you're building him in like the mid lane assassin. And there's just so many options for his ult to work.
Exactly, and even if you go into the game with a plan of how you're going to play him, if the last pick from your opponent ends up being something like Malphite or something like that, and you were planning on going, tank Sylas or semi-tank Sylas, you could be like, well, if I go AP Sylas, then I get to sell the Malphite ultimate and, one-shot somebody as well. So the change and the adaptation, I think, that you need with this champion requires time on the champion. And pros right now maybe have, 5 games if they've played it a lot.
In scrims, too, just be banned and stuff.
Which is why I'm personally not sold on him being played in the pro scene right now. Because if we talk about the necessity of time, it is akin to, and Mark, you brought this up earlier in the day, the idea, Akali from Summer, right? This is a champion that very clearly, when she was reworked and re-released, people were like, okay, this is going to be a strong champion. There is potential in this champion. And her presence was very high in the first week. But the 2 games where she got played, she went down 0-2. And looking back on some of those builds put together by pro players, it's like, what in the heck were they thinking? That's abysmal. I don't think people have given Sylas enough time within that versatility, within the infinite permutations of, how this champion can be played and what it is played against. Have people figured it out well enough to really deserve being played on the LCS stage?
That's what's the question right now, and I think he is kind of in that, not quite a Akali tier, because she was definitely crazy when she came out, but like the kind of thing where you see the potential, you want to make it work, you haven't quite had enough time to get all these scrims down, but the same way like you haven't had a ton of time to play with it, the enemy hasn't had a ton of time to play against it. So if you've got 4 scrim games of Sylas and you think it's good and you think you know a matchup, does the other guy know it? Maybe it is worth still playing.
And even your teammates playing with this champion, right?
Right.
You have to practice playing with it as well. How best can you help him out? Does he need the level 2 gank, or so forth?
Exactly, and I think there's still a lot of discussion. We talked about, builds ranging from full tank all the way to full AP. I wanted to get a sense from you guys if you were kind of getting an inkling that it's better one way or the other, because we've seen all of them find minimal success or substantial failures on the stage. It appears the ratios are calling for lots of AP.
So I love the full AP Sylas because you get the biggest moments when you steal those Ashe arrows or Shyvana ults or Malphite ultimates. However, I think that needs to be molded into your strategy. If you're going to do a split push strategy, and your rest of your team is built around this, then you can have a full AP Sylas. He can go push those side lanes. He's very mobile. He can have a lot of power. But if you're picking him to be in the team fights, you have to at least go with Abyssal or something like that and go semi-tank so that you can survive in those team fights. And it does also depend so much on the enemy composition of what ults you're going to be.
Final thought for me is I think the tanks builds are seeing a little bit more success right now because I think it's also a little easier to play. Like if you're playing
more forgiving.
Yeah, it's much more forgiving to play a tank build, and then you'll get more opportunities to steal ults and stuff like that. So I think those are a little bit more successful now, but I'm kind of aligned with Kobe where I think the upper end of the potential is with the AP builds.
Yeah.
I would say don't jungle him. His cooldowns are just
That's
too
just
long.
a rule. Just don't jungle.
Jungle. You can't max W. You have to max the Q to get the clear. I think my biggest qualm right now with the way that Sylas is appearing in pro play is that he's been picked first rotation on red side in all 3 of those games in the LEC without seeing a lot of the data of what are the ultimates that are going to be on the other side. What is my specific lane matchup going to be? He was picked, actually, sorry, one time into the Jace in a final rotation. But I think, much like you, it's going to be more reliant on a counter pick, making sure he secures a good top side of the map and can start to get ahead of the curve in terms of damage.
Unless the pros feel like the power level is literally just that high that, you know, he's going to be super strong lane, and that's what they're going to pick him, because right now the game is very fast. Should be played fairly fast, I feel like, and snowballing with turret plates and stuff like that should be a focus. So if they feel he's already on that level. I
just hope we get to see him today so we can get some more data around where and
some
how.
Some NA data.
But yeah, some NA data.
I don't care about all this
other
other
crap. See the true carries pull them out today. Time for us to take another breather. On the other side, we'll look at the analyst stock portfolio. Spoiler alert, it's not great. That's coming up next after the break. Welcome back to LCS Countdown. A couple of weeks ago, we introduced the LCS stock market, where analysts place their bets on which teams will rise in ELO based on their performance in the LCS. So let's check in to see how you guys are doing based on the bets you placed in week one.
Let's get through this part fast.
We invested in gold, James.
Great.
We got burned.
On the left side column, you can see the current pricing of each of the teams, as well as the adjustment or rise and fall in their price there indicated next to them. Of course, we have the portfolios that you guys elected to go for in week one. They're listed in each of those columns. And the current valuation of your portfolios, again, with net losses in this case for all three of you. Looks like high, as a matter of fact, actually doing the best out of the three.
Still negative all around, though.
Still negative all around. It was a tough, tough week.
The least loss for high because the least amount of Golden Guardian stock.
Yeah, that's really it. Golden Guardians, I mean, we all bought into the hype.
Mark the worst because he got 4.
I tried to sell on week one. I was told the markets were closed.
Exactly. It's a weird market schedule every other week.
Bi-weekly.
Maybe one day they'll open up more often. Just for in case you guys were wondering what a good portfolio would look like, I just wanted to show you guys what I had invested in.
Oh, really?
Week one. Yeah, no, yeah.
I was with you all day, James. You did not do this.
No, I mean, I did it on Slack. It's not like I voiced my reasoning to you guys.
Give me your reasoning then for picking 6 CLG shares.
I go with my heart, Kobe.
Every single pro player was
I went with CLG because I knew it would net me a profit. I mean, how much more?
Yeah, you knew because you made that last night.
Because you did it yesterday.
Because you did it yesterday.
Quite clearly, all right? But that is what a winning portfolio looks like. You guys, of course, were given the opportunity to adjust your portfolios here going into week 3. Essentially, the valuation of your current portfolio could be respent in any way you want. Let's take a look at yours.
I actually can't believe you're doing this.
Hey, Mark.
You can't believe it, but I'm doing it.
You're taking a point from my portfolio.
I don't listen to you ever.
You're clearly learning.
So the strategy here is Team Liquid's a bit of a control stock. I think you know that even worst case scenario, they'll go 3-1. But I don't expect to see the plus 60 returns again because that was kind of the market readjusting itself for the fact that everyone was kind of closer together at the start of the season than they should be.
Right.
So they're not going to get the same gains going 4-0 this week as they got, you know, previously. So they're still there because I expect them to make me money, but they're not my big one. CLG is the big one for me. I'm taking a risk on them. I want to make money back because I lost so much on Golden Guardians. If you look at their schedule, I think that they should be able to pick up 3 wins here. I think the Golden Guardians one is a pretty big win. 100 Thieves currently also bottom of the table. I think they have potential to be a lot better than they're showing right now, but hopefully you can catch them while they're still weak this weekend. And then if you get one of the other 2 games, 3-1, big money.
Definite 3-1 possibility for
you sound so confident. Big money!
Big money! I'm the guy who just gets offers. I'm like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, all right, Kobe, let's take a look at your portfolio.
I am actually betting directly against Mark because that 100 Thieves matchup versus CLG, I think 100 Thieves is going to win. I'm investing very heavily in 100 Thieves. I thought that they had the toughest schedule in the opening couple of weeks. Now, they also made a lot of mistakes themselves. I still have confidence, though, in those players to basically rebalance themselves. And looking at their upcoming matches, it's actually kind of similar to the lineup that CLG is facing. I expect 100 Thieves to actually get the better of that.
Yeah, it's a similar strategy, just on different sides of who we think will be the big winner this week.
Exactly. You see a lot of the middle of the pack teams there that they're going to have to compete against here in their next 4. Both of you taking that Team Liquid insurance policy of, hey, at least I think this team is so much better than the rest.
They're going to win.
I'm not going to lose all my money. High's not here today, but he did go ahead and send us his updated portfolio for week 3. He's going even further down the Team Liquid hole here, throwing 4 of his purchases behind them, and then very much still a diversified portfolio behind that. Cloud9 has a little bit of faith. Clutch, Echo Fox, and 1 still in Golden Guardians. I don't know if that's like, hey, Golden Guardians turned everything around and they skyrocket.
He's going like the Bonds approach, you know, like not high returns, but you're probably going to make money on Team Liquid, and then you hope you make money on a couple of the smaller ones.
I like that they use the picture. He's in a Golden Guardians jersey for his portfolio. He still has a piece.
We'll update that.
This is the Liquid next 4 matches, by the way. And yeah, I would expect them to win all, if not 3 of these games.
They're
Today's
big favorites.
matchup is big against FlyQuest.
I mean, if they win that one,
that's true.
You think they're going to be good if they win today?
Yeah. Fair enough, though. Me and Mark are looking to make the comeback. It makes sense that he's doing this strategy since he's in
playing
first
from
place.
ahead.
And all of you are chasing me. With 100 Thieves versus Clutch Gaming just 4 minutes away, let's go ahead and get you guys' predictions for the day. Taking a look at them, 1 difference.
Gotta go with my stock purchases here. I'm the only one taking 100 Thieves versus Clutch Gaming.
I was really close to going 100 Thieves, though.
Yeah.
I think it is a very close matchup.
I think, do they have blue side as well?
I think Clutch Gaming is red side.
Okay, so 100 Thieves also have blue side, which I think is pretty significant advantage as well. So maybe that'll be my kicker.
I was throwing his weight behind Echo Fox there in that 4th game, while the both of you are choosing CLG. Why so confident in CLG over Echo Fox?
I think the mid lane is a little scary for me. I like Power of Evil and I like Wiggly a lot, and Rush and Phoenix have been kind of underperforming, and I think Stixxay and Biofrost will do fine against Apollo and Haku, who have been really good.
All right, well, returning our attention to that first game of the day, 100 Thieves Clutch Gaming. Let's throw some win conditions out onto the table. Kobe, you're up first. 100 Thieves, they got to do it for your stock portfolio, so what's it going to be?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, tell them.
Please, play to your strengths. Camp for someday early on, send Anda up there. Huni is such a volatile laner. Like, you know how he's going to push up. You know that you can gank him. We've seen it successfully, not just this year, but also last year at the tail end of that, in even international play. So if you get someday fed early, you can get Huni behind. If you don't get Huni behind, then he's going to steamroll, and you can just rely on Afro and Bang to carry later.
All right, Mark, how do we bankrupt Kobe?
I mean, I completely agree with his assessment, which is why I'm saying invest in Damonte early on. Give him resources to actually carry. I think that's the biggest weak point on the map right now for 100 Thieves, pretty clearly. Damonte has also been your best part so far. And if you're going to give him in-game resources, the other side lanes have to calm down and not push super hard and, like Kobe said, be really gankable, because that's their kind of consistent play style, but pull it back a little bit, be safer, let Damonte win his matchup, which he should be doing better in. And I think that's going to be the big ticket win, but if Huni is pushing up like crazy and Piglet's pushing up like crazy, I get pretty nervous.
Right, suggests there might be a pretty interesting push and pull in this matchup if the teams decide to maybe let one lane suffer in interest of getting another ahead.
Yeah, and they don't have to do this like as long-term game plan, but I'm saying for this matchup versus Huhi, give Damonte the tools.
You want to see Safeo Fox? I've never seen a safe Echo Fox game before.
Doesn't seem like it's in their nature, right?
We'll see.
Especially with Rush at the helm. With that, we're going to throw it out to the battle arena to get ourselves into game 1.